Riggs. I am a certified neuroscience coach, and I'm also a former lawyer. I'm going to start in sort of an unusual way, because I think your brains, because it's new or unusual, different, will sit up and take notice, number one, but also you'll see later why this is actually a neuroscience tool. But I'm going to start by telling you what I'm feeling right now. I am noticing that my heart is beating a little faster than normal. I'm noticing that I'm a little nervous, a little stressed, but mostly excited. It's a nervous excitement that I'm feeling. Because I'm really passionate about this topic for a number of reasons. But first, before I get into that, let me give you and your brains a roadmap for where we're going to go tonight. What I know is that our brains, one of the central functions is to predict what's happening next, to try to figure out where you're going and what to do. So I'm going to throw your brains a bone and start with the roadmap for tonight. We're going to talk about the neuroscience of pressure. What is happening to your brains when you're under pressure? Then we're going to get into some key strategies for how to keep that brain performing at its best when you're faced with pressure. A lot of the things that we normally tend to do are in fact not helpful at all in terms of neuroscience. Then I want to give us all a chance to apply these strategies to a hypothetical scenario. So we'll do some of that as a large group. And then I'll break you out into some smaller groups to work on some individual strategies, and we can see how they might actually work in a real life situation. And then I want to end with a couple of tips for how to continually work to rewire that brain to be more effective in the future. All right, sound good? So let me just start by telling you why this topic is so, why I'm so passionate about it. One is, as a former lawyer, I know that, gosh, I felt under pressure all the time. I felt stressed. I know it affected my thinking. I know it affected my performance and even my health. I know that now. I didn't know it at the time. And I also know that I didn't really like to talk to other lawyers or colleagues or people who may have helped me, but about what I was feeling, because I was embarrassed by it. I mean, that is one of the unfortunate things I think about being a lawyer, is it's so common, and I know this from my own experience, from working with clients, and there's actually been some surveys, anonymous surveys done on this, that I know that lawyers are loath to or hesitate to admit when they're feeling pressure or stress. Why? Because they think it's a sign of weakness. I know I felt that myself, and it is understandable, but guess what? Lawyers are still people, we are humans, and we have brains that operate a certain way when we're feeling pressure and stress. And guess what else? It is normal. It's normal, and it's not our fault that certain things are happening in our brains when we feel pressure or stress. It is not weakness. And why I really I'm so excited to share this with you, and why I love the work that I do with other smart and accomplished professionals, is because it normalizes a lot of the challenges that we have by simply knowing what is happening in your brain. And once you have that knowledge, and once you know the tools for changing and rewiring, then then you begin to build the new neural pathways, and you can perform better. You can make those changes. You can meet those challenges on a much higher level. And neuroscience also provides the explanation, but it also provides the hope for change. Because that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, not true. And you may all know of this, have heard of this word by now, but it's called neuroplasticity. What we know now is that we can rewire our brains at any age. So that gives us hope for change. So lawyers can rewire their brains to be more effective under pressure, and I want to spread that word so people and lawyers don't internalize it and think it's their fault. No, you understand what's happening in your brain, and then you learn tools and you can turn it around, and it doesn't have to be sort of something to be embarrassed or actually even ashamed about, but it's something that we can use to perform better. So that's my spiel, my passionate spiel for you, why I love this and why I want you to know this and you to put this into practice. Okay, the neuroscience. Why might we get sort of that, when we're feeling under pressure, under stress, why we might have that foggy thinking, we have a hard time remembering things, we might not make the best decisions, we might not understand what people are saying to us, we might have a hard time juggling competing demands, right? We know this through, there's a great study by Amy Arnsten at Yale Medical School that explains why all of this may be happening. And it has to do with the chemicals that are released in our bodies when we're feeling stress and pressure, and what those chemicals do to different parts of our brain. We're going to talk about the amygdala, which is that cluster of neurons here at the top of the brain stem. This is part of our limbic system. It's also been called the reptilian brain. So this was one of the oldest parts of the brain in terms of evolution, and it was there, it is there to keep us safe, essentially. It's that quick reactive fight, flight, freeze, look out for danger, keep us safe. And I'm doing this with my hand because I want to show you this actually great model. Daniel Siegel introduced this and I love it. But a model of the brain for this is if you take your hand and bend your thumb in like this against your palm, this is the amygdala. Okay, here's the brainstem going down to the spinal cord. And then you fold those four fingers over. This is the cortex, the outer layer of the brain. And in here is the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex, I call this the CEO of our brains. This is the executive functioning, high-level thinking. This is smart decisions, impulse control, delaying gratification, empathy, understanding others, and helping us regulate all kinds of things, memory, behavior, emotion, goal direction, planning. When we want to be performing, practicing law at our best, we want to do it from the prefrontal cortex. But what happens with those, when those chemicals get released, when our body, when we are under pressure or stress and our body senses that, those hormones come in and they say, oh, activate the amygdala, hello, we need to keep ourselves safe. And we lose the access to the prefrontal cortex. That's what Arnsten's study showed, that you can say we flip a lid, right? And this is where we are thinking and acting from. Daniel Goleman, author of Emotional Intelligence, you heard of that book, he calls this the amygdala hijack. And not very nuanced thinking or behavior happens from here. So that's the neuroscience. What can we do to get ourselves back online when those chemicals are released? What can we do to keep the connection to that prefrontal cortex? So we're going to get into 4 key strategies, but first let me share with you a couple of, I call them non-strategies, things that you want to avoid that are not helpful. One is panic. Panic. This is when you start to get stressed about your stress. This is when you say, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to get this stuff done. I'm not going to, how late am I going to have to stay here tonight? Oh, I have this and that in the morning. Oh no, I probably won't be able to sleep. You know, I've got this. This is just when you freak out about freaking out. And then you are simply increasing the level of the dopamine and the cortisol, and your prefrontal cortex, instead of getting back online, is like, woo, even farther away, forget about it. So panicking, not great. And I will also share with you a great TED talk that deals with actually the good side of stress, because not all stress is bad, right? Certain levels of stress are really good. You know, I felt stressed at the beginning of this talk, but it was a good stress. It got me, you know, I was alert, paying attention. I was ready to go. So there's a TED talk by Kelly McGonigal if you're interested in this sort of positive perspective on stress. But let's go to non-strategy number 2, and this is suppression of it. This is just the chemicals are released because the pressure and stress is there. It is being felt, but you just sort of like don't want to pay attention to it. You say, oh, I'm just going to pretend it's not there. It's not helpful. I'm going to plow through. It's a completely understandable strategy, right? You just want to get things done. You kind of don't know what else to do. But it does nothing in terms of the neuroscience to help you out, because the chemicals are still there. The prefrontal cortex is still offline. And this is when we turn to strategies like sort of coping strategies like alcohol, food, drugs, other kind of things, mind-numbing things. That's why I chose this slide. This guy's really just mindlessly attacking the donut. Maybe he just had a stressful event, I don't know. But you know, unfortunately, I think the suppression is a really common thing, response, but not a great one in terms of the neuroscience. So let's turn to what are some helpful strategies. And they are, first, you're just starting by pausing. Pause, you've got to notice what is going on so that you can change it. And that pausing and that observing, bringing your focus and attention to what is happening, is actually step number 1 in creating the new neural pathway. So we start with pause. And by the way, this is, if you add an N, it would spell Pac-Man. That's just an easy way to remember, the P-A-C-M-A. The second one, and we'll get into these in more depth when we apply them to this scenario. But the second one, articulate what you're feeling. Study was done that actually showed that when people articulated negative feelings or emotions, it actually helped activate the prefrontal cortex. So that's why I started the way I did tonight. I was just articulating what I was feeling, getting that prefrontal cortex back online. And then control. What, if anything, can you control in this situation? Even just the belief that you can control something can help calm those stress hormones down. And then mindset. We're going to talk about a number of different mindsets that you can explore and adopt that will help bring that prefrontal cortex back online. That's a really important one, mindset. And then finally, action. And that is about committing to the mindset and taking action from the mindset. And that is going to deepen that new neural pathway. So, but what I'd like to do before we go into these anymore is to have you all read the scenario. Does everyone have a handout? Yes? Okay. If not, there's some extras, I think, right there. So just take a few minutes to read the scenario, and then we're going to talk about it and break up into some groups and apply these strategies. All right, thanks.